So, got a question for you. What's the most profound transformation you've witnessed in me since us starting working in this field?
Mm, I think the most profound transformation is how you relate to your sexual energy. Mm, so it's so funny, right? Most people, when you talk to them, they would say, "Oh, I don't have any shame about my sexuality," because they don't really think about walking around or think, feeling like an extreme sense of shame. However, shame is like so subtly interwoven into our subconscious. So I remember you in the beginning of our tantric journey to say that if you would feel really horny, you wouldn't really enjoy being at work because then you're thinking about sex and it's inappropriate and it doesn't make sense in the work environment. And I remember because I was already studying so much Tantra, and I guess a women's experience of no, that's a wrong generalization. A lot of my female friends wouldn't tell me that in the same way. They wouldn't say like, "Oh, I was so horny at work, it was really distracting." Obviously, there's women who have that exact same experience, but I didn't hear that yet from a woman at that point. So for me, my experience was very different to yours, and I've just studied about like sexual energy is this most sacred energy, and I remember, you telling me that, making me feel like, "Oh, wow. How does that gonna come together?" Of like, I don't wanna feel sexual energy when I'm in a situation that is not having sex with you. I don't actually want that energy at any other time. And I feel that's like a massive transformation because, yeah, I think, oh, I see you now enjoying your life force, your sexual energy
Mm.
as like the most powerful amphetamines, the most powerful creative tool, the most powerful coffee, anything that's kind of like brings you up and ready to go.
Hmm. Yeah, because I think it was actually a line from a David Data book, actually, where he was talking about shame and talking about how looking at someone inappropriately and feeling shame towards it because of this sexual energy. And then he reframed it by saying, well, you don't need to look at that energy as something dirty. You could also just be marveling in the beauty of the situation. You could be, so I would look at a woman perhaps and just be like blown away by her beauty. And I could either go down the route of something that's quite shameful perhaps and quite dirty by fantasizing about making love with them, or I can just marvel in their beauty of being like, wow, this person's so radiant, and really like soaking in her Shakti energy from a really innocent way, a way of like praise and adoring it rather than allowing that energy to intertwine with more raunchy things that might wanna do, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's just reframing
it
it.
it makes complete sense because also as a woman, I've been on the receiving end of that specific stare.
Yeah.
Every woman has, and it's like through tantra, I realized what makes it so icky is how the energy between me and that person that stares lustfully is so tainted by the depth of their shame and all the unconscious baggage that they have attached to it.
Mm.
So if you look at me and you are feeling activated in your body, like you feel sexual energy, you feel tingle in your body, you feel like wow, rapture, like you have to look because it's so powerful and so beautiful. I don't feel the same ickiness in my body because you are not sending me your own baggage of shame.
Yeah.
And I think that's really fascinating because in the first scenario where there's fantasy and there's shame, the person that is looking, and the David Data example, when he reframed that for himself to just see the marvel into the beauty, like the beauty, and see like just that magicalness
Mm.
of energy, right? Like, wow, this woman is so captivating. There is, how to say, it's kind of, I don't like the word, but it's kind of purified.
Yeah.
I can still be intimidated as a woman by an intense look because I have my own wounds and history of male sexual energy.
Yeah.
But the chances of that just being received in a very beautiful connection, in a connecting way,
Yeah.
are like so high, because as a woman, even though many women, unpopular opinion, I've heard many women say, I'm not dressing up because I want men to look at me. Is like, yeah, fair. And at the same time, yeah, you do.
Mm.
Because not because you want to impress men, but because not necessarily men, but everyone who looks at you gives you the gift of like their consciousness.
You want to be witnessed
So if you are witnessed
and
in
be
your
seen.
beauty, in your sexy, in your bold, in your colorful, in your expression, it changes how you feel while expressing yourself.
Yeah.
So yes, if you're dressing really outrageously, amazingly, leaving the house, everyone who witnesses you is contributing in a positive way to you and your expression.
Mm.
And I think it's fascinating to me. There's a big shadow there to be like, oh, I want to dress really outrageously bold, but it's only for me. It's like, okay, yeah. I think
Well, you can do both.
what
No.
they're really saying is, I want to dress like that, and I want to radiate this, quality, like the boldness or the colorfulness or the sexiness. I want to radiate that, but I don't want to be witnessed by weird creeps.
Yeah.
I want to be witnessed by the eyes of God, like loving consciousness that just, I guess, is a witness without a judgment. That's a witness without a taking. It's a witness without any strings attached. It's literally just
Yeah, and I think
other pairs of eyes.
that's the innocent. And you mentioned pure. I like to think it, which is very similar, is like innocent, where I can marvel at someone's beauty, but I don't want to have sex with them.
Yeah.
That's just end of story, really.
Yeah, and I think
And I think that
sex,
radiates.
but it's also like, are you taking, right? Like, are you just witnessing from this place of presence, or if you start going off, for example, in fantasy, right? You are kind of taking from them.
Yeah, and I think that's as well. And it's not going off into some fantasy about, ripping their clothes off. It's more just enjoying the moment for what it is and the radiance of that beauty and that energy
Yeah, I think it's
and being
really,
really composed with it and celebrating it.
yeah,
Yeah. And some guys find that really difficult
100%.
because it's quite intense.
And I think that's probably one of the really underrated practices that we do in every Tantra workshop, is being witnessed.
Yeah.
It's being seen, like allowing yourself to express and then be seen. And it's so profound. And when we slow it down, that process of like expressing our true essence and someone else witnessing in presence, it really reveals how powerful that is.
Yeah, and how edgy it is and how uncomfortable it can feel. 'Cause you don't really, we spend, I think we spend a lot of our lives not wanting to be seen, but also really wanting to be seen.
Yeah, it's
The
such a
contradiction.
conundrum.
Yeah, the contradiction of it all, of not wanting to stand out, but wanting to be recognized.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yeah, and so then when we get both, then, what do we do?
Yeah. And I think like a really easy example to feel that difference is like if I dance at home in my room just by myself, how that feels. And then if you don't have anyone who can witness you with the eyes of unconditional love, you can imagine someone looking at you. And that already changes how you feel in your body.
Yeah.
It's that mad. It already amplifies your experience. And as you said, that can be incredibly challenging or incredibly exhilarating.
Or both.
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably both most of the times.
Most of the time.
Right.
Got a question for me?
Tell me about a moment where you felt completely cracked open by our work. What happened and how did it change you?
Cracked open.
Mm-hmm. Heart, body, mind.
Heart, body, mind. Yeah, I think it was really the evolution of bringing or allowing more emotions to be involved in intimacy. And one moment springs to mind when we were involved in a very intimate moment, and you became really emotional in terms of tears and shaking. And yeah, I think that really, it made me think like, wow, this stuff's really powerful. And it also made me think like, what should I do? And it also made me feel quite raw because it was a really intense moment. And yeah, it also made me feel a lot of love and compassion for going on this journey with you. And yeah, it really showed me the healing benefits that it can have. And it kind of, for me, entered this whole kind of mindset of how we can hold space for each other to grow when dealing with heightened sexual arousal. And yeah, it was really beautiful, intense, and a little bit scary. So
Sounds alive.
I think that's cracked open, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it's a really key point because that brings the spiritual element to it, that brings the healing process to it, and that brings people closer together. So it's really allowing people's energetic fields to become more intertwined and them to grow on a path together using intimacy and arousal energy to really go on that trajectory synced together, which is beautiful, instead of just seeing sex as some pleasure movement, you know,
Yeah, like the full spectrum
the
of
full
what that
spectrum of
means
it.
to connect so intimately with someone.
Yeah, it's like, you want better sex,
Mm.
well, you have to bring more emotion into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or you're not having good sex, you're probably not bringing enough emotion to it. Or you
Mm.
probably don't feel safe enough to feel the full spectrum of what's there.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a real breakthrough moment for me and for us. Or for me, I don't know about you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for me, it feels, yeah, it's really magical when emotional release happens like that because it's so held. And yeah, as you said, it's so healing because there's like a dissolving, like a melting, and the tears and also the shaking, right? Like if I allow the energy to really go through my body in this kind of state of arousal, there's so much that's just moving through, and it's a different pleasure than the clitoral orgasm would be, but it is actually really pleasurable at the same time. I think it's how to describe, it's so alive. It's like rapture. There's like nothing else in that moment. It's like timelessness. And I think that's how, yeah, like yeah, that
Yeah.
and that vulnerability to like fall apart like that is just, yeah, so special. Priceless.
What's the hardest truth you've had to face about yourself through your journey as a tantric coach?
Everything. Oh, just one. um,
Tell me all.
I think being self-employed as a tantric coach, um, generally being self-employed, I think, pushes you to look at a lot of stuff that is easier avoided to look at because you don't have anyone to blame, right? If I feel overworked, there's no boss that can say like, oh, I don't have enough holiday in this company, or there's no one to blame for my work hours, for anything really. The type of projects I have, like everything I choose. So if I'm not satisfied,
It's your fault.
I can only look inwards. I can only ask myself. Um, so that's a big one. And then obviously not to come with blame and be like, oh, I created all this mess. What the fuck? But to just take everything as a learning and be like, oh, okay, I thought this would be amazing.
Mm.
And actually, it's something else that I need.
What about specifically within Tantra?
Yeah, I'm getting there, honey. So that's
Give me the juicy stuff, all right?
I think that is really important.
I know it is.
So, wow, I need to. Then that brought me out a bit. I feel a bit emotional because that's actually really important for me and like probably one of my biggest pains. What I've just shared.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's work in progress. Not to blame myself and to celebrate the steps instead of reaching for more. Okay. And when it comes to being a tantric coach, I think first of all, my attachment to wanting to fix everyone around me so that I can feel better, which started as a child trying to fix my mom so I can feel safe. And I have taken so many gifts from the childhood that I had and, being the parent to my mom and all of these kind of dynamics. And a lot of my clients had different upbringings and I really know how they feel and I really know how they can heal from that experience and take the gifts but leave the crap. But it is a constant reminder to just to feel the pain that I see in front of me, just to witness my clients' despair, their helplessness, their frustration, their low self-worth, whatever's they're like feeling safe enough to show, to bring to the surface, to heal and release. It's Tantra really helped me there to feel my own emotion because I'm not suppressing that. I often start crying when my client cries, but not in the same way. It's like important where the Shakti is. So the Shakti is with them. They are feeling their energy. I'm still 90% witnessing them, but I allow 10% for my own energy to also move. So I am also processing some tears. And the challenge there is to keep it that way. Not to be attached to them feeling better by the end of the session so that they can say, oh, Laura, thank you so much. This was amazing. And then my ego can be like, oh, I'm such a good coach.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. And another one, when holding space, I think I love attention. And I don't think I struggle at all to like give space for other people to have the stage or the attention. However, I think there's a need for approval
From
participants.
okay.
Yeah, so that comes out in like a critical voice, like a voice of like, oh, is this good enough?
Yeah.
Oh, is everyone having a good time? This woman over there looks super distracted. Is she able to follow? Do I need to slow down for her? So again, it's like gift and also challenge. It's a gift of like hypersensitivity, like observing everyone super closely, which is helpful because you want to be able to read the room as a good facilitator. But on the other side, it's not helpful for the group when the leader is not really centered in themselves, but like focus on everyone else's experiences more than their own. So that is something that I've really learned, to pull my energy back into myself, to see the thought coming up of like, oh, I don't know if that woman over there is having a good time. Okay, I thought that thought. That's fine. And now I can release the expectation or the desire for everyone to be super amazed by every minute of this workshop because that's not why they're here. They're not here to give me the approval that I did a good job.
No.
They're there for their own process. And if their own process is them dissociating and realizing, oh, wow, I am actually checking out when I listen to this woman, or them suddenly feeling super sad and realizing, fuck, this topic makes me really sad, right? That's why they're there, to have their own experience and bring more consciousness to their own patterns, beliefs. So yeah, I guess the lesson is it's not about you. It's not about me.
It's not about you, no.
Which is the ego is like, but it's all about me, isn't it? It has to be.
Well, the ego likes to be seen, doesn't it? It likes to think it's doing a good job.
Yeah, it needs
And it's good at what it does.
it wants approval, it wants praise.
Yeah, I often fall into that comparison of like, oh, these people are praising this other facilitator much more than they're praising me.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Or I want to be praised like that.
Or in the last Tantric priestess training, one participant was, oh, my favorite part was the womb massage where we got someone else into the retreat. Yeah. So we held a week-long retreat and she was like, oh, my favorite part was this external person.
Yeah. Well,
but it wasn't really stinging. It was just funny because I noticed my ego being like, what? And then I was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and there's been a few times, and this is, yeah, maybe a bit. There's been a few times like we worked together,
Mm-hmm.
and it might just be a gender thing, but I did the structure, and then all the women like thanked you for it. I was like, well, I did it. You didn't do anything. You held space. You were there, but you were like,
oh, when you were done with your structure, everyone said thank you to me.
Yeah. And I was like,
hello.
Hey.
Who's praising me?
I'm here as well, you know.
Praise me.
I felt that. I just felt that.
Yeah.
I was like, why are you not looking at me when you're saying this?
Yeah, and that's the whole point of the tantric path, right? You're not saying, oh, I shouldn't feel this. You're just feeling it. You're like,
Yeah.
Oh, this stinks. Take a breath into that. Oh, okay, it stung. That's fine. Let's move on now after feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah. Hit me with a question.
What's something you've learned about relationships through our work that has most impacted our own connection?
That they're really complicated with many layers, and a lot of the cliches are just really true. You know?
What cliches?
Like growing together.
Right.
Moving together. Like a lot of people reach out to us or reach out to me perhaps, and they're like, oh, my relationship feels stuck. Nothing's happening. And then the question is, well, what are you doing about it? And I suppose they're reaching out, so that's a great thing to do. But, you know, you have to do stuff. You have to grow together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to grow apart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the famous cliche is like, oh, we grew apart. Super true. Because humans always change, and your relationship's always going to change.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, then you're not, no matter what, you're always going to change. And so, yeah, having that idea and having that, you know, understanding of like, okay, so we were good 3 years ago because we were doing this. What are we doing right now to make sure our relationship is still good? You know, and that could be living in London, that could be doing new things, that could be going to other workshops for our relationship, that could be trying new things, you know. What am I doing right now to make sure that I am growing aligned with you, and what are you doing to make sure you are growing aligned with me, and having that kind of dynamic dance between the both of us, so we're growing together. Because in 5 years time we're going to be completely different. And if we don't like keep that agility present, then one person generally will just leave the other person behind,
Yeah.
metaphorically and physically and whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like staying. Some relationships do that, where like one person stays at home and like's happy looking after the garden, and the other person's like going off to do what they want to do, and they know that they're really secure in that difference.
Yeah.
And I think that differences should be celebrated, and that these situations do happen, and that's
Yeah.
great. But generally, the way I see it and the way our relationship works in terms of how much time we spend together, if we're not on the same page, then it's just going to cause so much disruption.
Yeah. Like you chose to go down a career path that gives you location freedom after I've already chosen one where I could, live wherever I want, work from wherever I want. And you were kind of when you were still in the teaching realms. I think that's like a big decision anyway you wanted to do that, but also what you were mentioning of just having really exciting adventures together, that's kind of necessary. Or you have the example of one person staying at home, like you said. And if that's working for both people, that's a really nice example for freedom creating more safety,
Yeah.
right? The one person that is craving more freedom, by getting that freedom from the person that stays home and tends the garden, that person that tends the garden gets more safety, ideally, when it's working, from the person that's going out for the adventure. Because the adventure person has their freedom, they will feel so much more committed to the person that is loving them and giving them the freedom, right? So like, yeah, freedom and safety, how they kind of play together.
Yeah. It's about trying new things, you want something different, you have to do something different. And so the way I see it is, yeah, just, are you going on the adventure together, or are you not? And it doesn't mean you always have to do the same things, because sometimes it doesn't align, and that's completely fine. But it's just, how many times have we seen women at Tantra retreats and their partners are with them, and the partners doesn't really know why he's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's great that he's there, because he's like, oh, I'm here because my partner wanted me to be here. And I'm like, good on you. Hopefully you have a really good moment, and then you're like, okay, let's go to a next one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hopefully it's like really beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
because that's like the courageous step of
Yeah.
trying new things.
Of wanting to grow with your partner.
Yeah, and it works the other way around. If like if your lady wants to take you to a tantra, then why don't you say, well, I actually really enjoy golf. Why don't you come play golf with me?
Mm-hmm.
Takes two to tango.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not all on the guys just to do whatever their partner wants to do, you know? No?
Of course.
Maybe it's not golf, maybe it's darts in the pub. Bonding experiences to be had with male activities.
Next question.
Next question. When do you feel most aligned with me in our work? What creates that sense of alignment?
Do you think this question means when we're hosting together, or just in general because we have so many conversations about work as well, right? Like work in the sense of topics that interest us. Like we talk for hours about trauma release and Tantra and Taoism and facilitation and all of that.
Yeah, whatever. I think whatever you think is in your mind right now. It could be all of them.
Well, when do I feel most aligned? I think I feel most aligned when I feel inspired. When you are bringing something to me that excites me. I love that.
What, like a piece of cake?
Like a piece of cake. Not like a piece of information, something that you're reading about. And also when you invite me into experiences because of something that you've learned or are fascinated by. So I remember, for example, on my 33rd birthday, you've booked a hotel, and then you facilitated a Tantra workshop for us both in there.
Nice.
That was so good.
And I charged you for it. Well,
Of course.
£85 day retreat for the full experience, for the full transmission.
That was so cute. Because you were at the same time the facilitator of the workshop and the second participant. A masterpiece.
Masterpiece.
That was really funny and really sweet and really aligned, because I was like, I just felt really, really seen. I felt really inspired. I felt it's like sharing something that just we both love, I guess. Sharing something we both love. And
Yeah. Well, you like to be taken on adventures.
Definitely.
And I think a lot of people do like to be taken on adventures, especially female people on special occasions. So I think that's an important thing to remember.
Yep.
Sometimes it's not about what you're getting the person, it's what you're doing for the person. That's more important.
You're really good with presents, definitely.
I've had a few flops with presents.
But you also had a lot of peaks.
I've had a few home runs for sure.
I think the potato peeler was
Potato peeler was epic.
Yeah.
Well, if the famous saying, if you don't shoot, you don't score.
Of course.
So you got to be shooting all the time. And sometimes the potato peeler present doesn't hit the back of the net. And that's
No, it doesn't.
It's fine. You live from that. Learn from that.
What edge in our work continues to challenge you, and how do I support you in meeting that edge?
I think that edge is basically relating with other people.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like being Tantra and then going to events and everyone's like connecting and smooching all over themselves, which is great with other people. And then it's like we're stepping into that field as a married couple who aren't polyamorous, really, and quite traditional, if you really think about it. Trad husband and wife. And then the edge is like, well, how does this work? And then like, how are we gonna deal with this kind of thing? And people are generally very nice and very innocent. I remember we were at training, and then one of the persons asked, they were like sitting in a circle, and this guy was like, hey, can you lie on top of me? And then he lied on top of him, and it triggered the fuck out of me. It just came out of nowhere, and I was like, boom. Why the fuck are you lying on top of him? This is a circle. We're like listening to something, and all of a sudden you're lying on him. And then this guy was like, someone who's bold and asking for desires. It's like, hey, lie on top of me. And all of a sudden you were. And it's just like, oh, so if that can happen so quickly, what else can happen so quickly?
Yeah. Creates unsafety.
So I think that's the edge.
Yeah.
For me, really. So for example, we're going to something tomorrow, and don't really know what's going to happen. It's one of these like sexy parties where everyone dresses up nice. We don't really know the lay of the land, and then what's going to happen. So I think that's the edge. Are we going to just be like, inviting other people? Are we staying together? Men are going to be interested in you because you're beautiful. Women are going to be interested in me because I'm so hot. And it's just really difficult.
Or what also can be difficult, no one's interested. No one's standing in the corner like,
interested.
It's awkward.
Yeah, and I've just got, just thinking about, does my belly look big in these tight pants? Thinking about how I need to get a six-pack for summer. And whether my hairy back is too traditional for other people.
Traditional back hair.
Traditional back hair.
And how can I support you with this edge?
Open communications, checking in, and also just trusting, because I trust your instincts, but trusting your like radar for like people who are just like that I don't like.
Yeah, you have some categories of like,
You
but
know?
usually we match. Like
Yeah, that's the
when
best
you
thing. You
feel
should just
like,
trust
oh,
that.
if you're like connecting with this man, that's fine with me, but with this one, I really don't like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, when we say connecting, we're not even just to
No,
clarify.
just
It's
like
not,
flirting.
yeah, it's just flirting,
Yeah.
touching, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's not
No.
like
It's one step at a
it's
time,
not like
guys.
heavy petting. It's pretty easy-ozy. But even that stuff is edgy.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Well, that's where it begins. I think if you don't discuss that, I mean, then you really find yourself eventually in a situation where someone is lying on top of someone and you're like, oh, that's a bit much.
In Triggerville.
Triggerville. So yeah, I think it's just like one step at a time, seeing how it feels to relate with someone, flirting and touching, and then, yeah, taking it from there in communication.
What's something about our relationship that you think would surprise our clients?
What was surprise? I don't know what people are surprised by. You cooking all my meals? I think that's really nice of you. Maybe surprising to some people.
Okay. Yeah.
Even though we're trad.
Very trad. That's role reversal trad. We're like trad 180.
Exactly. Maybe that we watched almost every season of RuPaul together that is out there.
We're avid RuPaul fans. Yeah.
RuPaul's Drag Race.
I also like Canada series where RuPaul's not part of that because I think Brooklyn does a remarkable job at boasting.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
I'm not, sorry guys, but not such a big fan of the Australian one. I don't know. There were just some people were too mean.
It's a bit, the humor is a bit vicious.
Yeah, it was too vicious for me. I didn't expect that, to be honest, from Australia.
Do you think people will be surprised that our favorite position is missionary?
Oh, trad.
Trad alert.
I heard though that if the legs are going in different ways, it's not missionary anymore.
I know, it's like it's missionaries just like
you kind of have to be all flat on the back as a woman for real missionary, right?
Yeah, and that they don't rarely do
Just
that.
like, yeah. I guess
Missionary, I wonder what the other positions of missionary are called then, like church steeple. The church steeple is probably when your legs are pointed straight up.
Exactly.
And the bell tower. The organ.
What is it when the legs are folded behind you so it's like a little pretzel?
Confession box.
Confession box.
I'm stepping into the confession box where
Of course.
where I'm praising the Lord. I think we've got time for one more question. Do you want to hit me?
Amazing.
Choose one that you think's that you wanna ask, and we'll just freestyle it in terms of me and you.
How do you think our practice of Tantra has shaped how we relate to each other?
I think we appreciate the small things a lot more. I think we're able to witness each other a lot more and hold space for each other a lot more. So it's a lot more, just a lot more.
So much.
Being able to be in the space, connect for periods of time in real presence and not feel like, oh my God, this is weird. This is intense. Oh, why are we looking at each other for so long? Why are we connecting for so long? Oh, I'm no longer horny, so let's just go back to doing something that's not super intimate.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm trying to say is it's allowed us to be more intimate in a really casual but sacred kind of way that spills into our everyday lives a bit more.
I like that. That's really sweet.
And what about you? Has Tantra saved our marriage? I know that's not the question, but
I think so. I think Tantra has changed our life in a way that it really opened our eyes for possibilities and like, yeah, what's possible.
Mm.
I think every time we like go out and do a training, we meet so many people as a, as both of us, we are going on so many adventures together.
Yeah.
And I think that really opens our horizon, and it keeps like so many new things flooding into our relationship
Yeah.
in the form of people and places and cultures and practices. And yeah, I think it keeps our life really exciting and interesting, and so it also keeps each other for ourselves exciting and interesting. So I do love that about it.
Where's the next adventure?
Next adventure, May, Guatemala.
Guatemala. Beautiful.
Tantric priestess practitioner training.
Temple for him.
Exactly. I love that actually. That's the first time that we're hosting at the same time and then bringing both groups together. That's so cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah, can't wait.
Me too. I love you.
Aww. I love you.
And I'll see you around.
Bye.
Bye.